Hello everyone, it's Romania Black, and we are crossing the threshold into a big mile marker this week. We are getting to chapters 98, 99, and 100 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Oh my! We're getting to the 100th chapter in this week's installment, and I am super excited. I have poured myself some coffee because it's cold outside, and if you're watching this on Patreon, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. If you're watching this on YouTube, then it is the week after Valentine's Day, and hopefully, if you received flowers from a significant other, friend, or family member, hopefully they will have been like the flowers Xie Lian received and have not wilted. But I am so excited. The last 2 weeks have seemed so perfect for Valentine's Day. They've been so romantic and macabre. MXTX is the only author I know that can mix macabre, horror, and romance together, and it just feels so natural, right? It's wonderful. And so I've really enjoyed these last several chapters, but I really enjoy them now as we dive into the comments for this section. I really enjoy it because apparently in the last set of chapters, I was very frustrated. I feel like it was not my best reaction and discussion because the whole time I was so frustrated because I was like, I don't know where the dream ends. I was like, I don't understand. And I was very confused, and you could probably tell. I was just like trying to figure it all out, right? And so on Discord, I told everyone, I was like, okay, look, I don't want this to sound like I'm asking for a spoiler, but I need to know if y'all can tell me if the dream ended in chapters 95 to 97 or before. Feel free to tell me because I am really confused. But if it's something I'm going to find out in the later chapters, then don't tell me. And I'll just let it happen when it happens. And apparently there was a council. There's just councils all over Discord over what to tell me. And finally Goldman said, okay, we've had a debate. And we've decided to tell you that in chapter 94, apparently the moment that Xie Lian hears the bride song and the fetus spirit and realizes it's the same as the one that was on Mount Yuzhun. Apparently, it's not as noticeable in the English translation, but in the original Chinese translation, in the Chinese version, it says, quote, when Xie Lian startled and woke up. And apparently at that moment, he wakes up from the dream, and the rest of the chapter is an illusion. I'm like, an illusion? An illusion, you say? MXTX, going from dreams to illusions? You can't do that to us. We don't know your rules. You made this world up. But apparently that's the case. And so Goldman said that. And then later, Blanca Choco said on page 296, there's a line about Xie Lian opening his eyes. And so I went to that part here and said he was calm as he lay in bed and sleep. An unknown time had passed and Xie Lian slowly opened his eyes. So at that point, I don't know. I'm assuming that also, but that's around the time he hears the song. So, but the point is, thanks to y'all for telling me, the point is he was not in a dream when Hua Cheng came and kissed him. That kiss was real! The kiss was real! It was his first real kiss. It wasn't a dream. I went back to that discussion. I felt so secondhand embarrassed. I was sitting there the whole time like, well, it was just a dream, so it wasn't real. But it was! It was real! The date was real! We talked in the Discord, we're like, Xie Lian, you really need to get back to them kids, but you can tell that I'm like in my 30s because I'm like, but the children, Xie Lian, but the children. I'm sure he's like, oh, they'll be fine. So I'm really happy that it was not a dream. It was real. Hua Cheng really kissed him. Everything that happened from the lake on has been reality. It has not been a dream. The date was real. That I was just like, oh, I took the biggest breath of relief when I read that in the Discord. I was like, oh my God, thank you. It's like, that takes like a weight off my shoulders and I can just toss it aside. I was so happy. I was so happy because yes, that is just, and I wrote my notes. I was like, the kiss is real. And I was like, yes, it is. But Xie Lian's like, what do I do with this? So it's wonderful. So thank you so much, Goldman. Thank you, Blanco Choco. Thank you, all of y'all on Discord for trying to make sure that I was correct, because that was going to bug me to pieces. And it's not very explicit in the novel. You really have to like pay attention. And I reread it 1,000 times, I feel like, just being like, where is it? And then finally they're like, the Chinese version makes it a little more clear. And I'm like, okay. But still, ghost spirits, illusions, dreams, MXTX, clarify. So there was that. Millipop had a really cool comment talking about how Hua Cheng and his ghost city citizens. I really love it. I love that the ghosts of Ghost City, they're so enamored by Hua Cheng. Can we blame them? But also, they just are really happy, and they want to like see his boyfriend and like give him all the food and stuff. And what's interesting is that Millipop comments how Hua Cheng wanting Xie Lian to be loud isn't necessarily a sexual innuendo, although you could take it that way, but it's also about him not hiding his pain anymore. And I really like that comment. I was like, the idea that Xie Lian doesn't need to hide his pain anymore, that Hua Cheng is there for him if he's in pain or struggling, call out and communicate that, and he'll help you. And I was like, that is wonderful. That makes all the sense. And then SQQLBH314 talks about like 100 chapters, nearly 100 chapters, and we're here. I mean, technically 94, but it took us nearly 100 chapters to get to like the first moment of, which I say the first moment of romance. It's how you define romance, because it's the first kiss. It's the first like sexual kind of romance that goes on, because you could argue like the sucking the venom out of his hand. You could argue that Hua Cheng carrying him around and dancing while he was battling in Banyu, the cart, them sharing a bed in the Pucci shrine. Like, you could argue there's been a lot of romantic moments, but this is the first kind of sexual moment that happened between them, the kiss, right? So very interesting. I also like too that the SQQ pointed out, you have the covers expectation of the kiss. Now that we know what the context is, you have the cover's expectation of the kiss, where it's all like romantic and beautiful and ethereal, and then you cut to the actual contents of the chapter, and Xie Lian's about to be invaded by a ghost fetus spirit and about to swallow a sword, and Hua Cheng is trying to keep him from drowning while doing this. It's pandemonium and chaos, and expectation versus reality, which has me thinking, that book back there where Xie Lian and him are making out, expectation versus reality. We'll see when we get there. We'll get there next volume. I'm so excited. So excited. But SQQLBH314 also talks about how in China, a woman's foot is almost like a private part. So I'm like, that makes sense with Xie Lian not wanting Hua Cheng to see his foot. And he does, because technically you're not supposed to let anyone see it but your husband or your family. And Hua Cheng's not family. So there we go. And then the food being offered to Xie Lian. I liked SQQLBH314's comment that it was almost like the food was being offered to Hua Cheng, almost like an offering to a deity, right? The ghosts are giving Hua Cheng this food to kind of offer to him, kind of like a mortal would a heavenly official, but Hua Cheng's not eating it. Instead, he's giving all of it to his deity, which is Xie Lian. And it's like, it's very interesting, very clever. I like it a lot. But Xie Lian feels so at home in the ghost city, like amongst all the ghosts, even though it's weird and kind of creepy and gross and bizarre. Xie Lian's just kind of at home with it. He feels much more at home in the ghost city with Hua Cheng than he does in the hoity-toity heavenly realm with all of them, with the exception of the Windmaster. Windmaster's a pretty chill person. But yeah, oh my gosh, y'all. So we're reading chapters 98, 99, and 100. But before we do that, I know this is a long intro, but I have read chapter 87 of the Manhua. We gotta talk about it before we get into this, because I have no clue what this is going to talk about in this chapter. And before I get into the discussion and forget about it, need to bring up the Manhua. So technically, if you're not aware, there are only 3 chapters of the Manhua left to be translated into English, and then we're going to go on a hiatus. So my hope was that we would get through the Manhua before ending volume 3. I don't think that's going to happen. I think maybe we might get to chapter 88 by the time we finish this volume, but my prediction is we're going to finish the Manhua for this season by the time we start volume 4. That's my prediction. But we did have volume 7, which was a fun time. I'm going to show you all screenshots of my favorite parts. Star Ember, just, girl, guy, whoever you are, you're amazing, because this whole thing with, we have Xie Lian as the sheep and Hua Cheng as the wolf. Fun times. But also, what I love is seeing, it's been so long since I've seen the manhwa, is seeing Xie Lian and the Windmaster as they're trying to get Ming Yi out of there. And the fact that Star Ember makes them look so different. Like, the Windmaster has a distinct nose, distinct eyes. Their features are different than Xie Lian's. And I like that, because sometimes when you have a mangaka or an artist that draws everyone especially beautifully, that sometimes you run the risk of characters looking too similar because they're all drawn beautifully. And MXTX, or Star Ember in this case, finds a way to make MXTX's characters all look very distinct. But Star Ember finds ways of saying, you know, I don't want to draw it that way. I want to draw it my own way. So the manhwa, it's been kind of fun looking at it after the fact and seeing what Star Ember kind of changes to make it more aesthetically pleasing, I guess would be the best way to put it. Because in the story, in volume 2, in that chapter, when Xie Lian and the Windmaster kind of roll the dice and burst through from where they rescued Ming Yi from, they literally run into Hua Cheng, and Xie Lian pushes him out of the way and is like, no move, and they get out of the way, and then that's when they face each other, and that's when the fire starts, and it's all this big crazy pandemonium. Star Ember's like, we're not ready for that yet. First, I'm gonna show you the most beautiful, instead they burst from the ceiling, which is crazy, right? It seems like it's either they burst from the ceiling or burst from the side. And there's the red cloth everywhere surrounding them, and Xie Lian's like cascading down. And then as he goes down, he like grabs a hold of the red gossamer curtains, which is beautiful, like all the layers of Xie Lian's hair and everything. And then instead of pushing Hua Cheng aside, that's not what happens in the manhwa. No. What happens is he's caught in the strong, beautiful arms of San Long. Just look at this business. Look at this. Like, it's so much more gentler and beautiful. And Hua Cheng has a hold of a Ming. What? And so, yeah, him with his beautiful black nails, like, grabs Xie Lian. I love this panel where he gets like and they do the little like eyebrow raise, like, what you doing? And Xie Lian's like, oh, San Long, oh, you caught me. But then realizes above him that the Windmaster is coming down with Ming Yi. And so at that point reading, I was like, okay, well, Xie Lian, that was really cute, Star Ember. It's really cute. You had him catch Xie Lian instead of him getting pushed aside. Very cute on you. Hot wink, wink. But now he's going to push him aside because the Windmaster's coming down, right? No. So instead, what happens is that through a Star Ember logic, Xie Lian takes Hua Cheng and flips him over out of the way in this beautiful, graceful, choreographed movement that at first I was like, what is he doing? And he does it so he like flips him out of the way so that the Windmaster can land on the ground with Ming Yi over their back, which, for the record, I love that Star Ember draws the Windmaster and Ming Yi looking kind of bulky and rather large and kind of like two men, right? I like that. And then Xie Lian's like, whew, and I like the little dirt pockets on Xie Lian to show that he's kind of dirty. But then, instead of pushing him out of the way, what does Star Ember do? She has Xie Lian sitting on top of Hua Cheng. Instead of shoving Hua Cheng out of the way, Xie Lian rolled them over and rolled himself on top of Hua Cheng. Now, we don't see Hua Cheng's expression at this point in the manhwa, but Xie Lian's like, oh, I'm wrapped up in this gossamer ribbon of yours, sitting quite firmly upon your lap, good sir. And instantly blushes like, oh, sorry, and then jumps out of the way. Star Ember, what are you doing? I was like, how is Star Ember going to just cover? Because my theory was that Star Ember is going to end the season of the manhwa with them going back to the Heavenly Realm and leaving the burning Paradise Manor behind, and that's going to be the end of the volume of the manhwa. That's what I assumed. But I was like, you got 3 chapters. How are you going to just go that slowly? Well, you're going to go that slowly if you're doing stuff like this. So I'm assuming the next 2 chapters of the manhwa are going to be the Windmaster challenging Hua Cheng, Paradise Manor burning, and Xie Lian leaving with Ming Yi to go back to the Heavenly Realm. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen, but with Star Ember takes some artistic licenses, and I'm fine with it because it's amazing, but we're not worthy. I was just, oh my God. Great times, right? But that's the Manhua chapter 87. So I don't think that chapter 88 will be out by the time before I finish this. If anything, it might be the last couple chapters when it comes out. Maybe not. We shall see. But the fact that they just translated chapter 87, I'm like, maybe it'll come out pretty soon. But so 90, 98, 99, and 100, y'all. It's kind of insane when you think about it. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'll probably bring it back up when we get to chapters like 116 or whatever. But I was thinking about it that around this time in Modao Zushi, we were done. The story of Modao Zushi was ending around chapter 100, and there were the extra chapters, like the bonus chapters that were like 116 and 123, but that was it. Like, we were at the climax of the story in Modao Zushi, and we're just at our first kiss in this story. It's hit me how long this story is, so, whew. But that's all right. I'm loving every chapter of it, so it's worth it to read a story this good and this fun and know that there's so much left in store. And I feel like the stuff that you see on social media translates a lot to the Donghua because you have a lot more, your audience is bigger with the Donghua and you have more references with the animated portions. So I feel like a lot of the stuff I've noticed on Twitter, and I've muted pretty much everything, but people I follow might share something that's like a screenshot or something, but it's always something related to chapters and stuff that I've already read at this point. So I like that because I have no clue what's to come. I feel like everything from volumes 4 on are like in a lockbox and it's just slowly trickling out, and I have no clue what's to come in this story, and I'm freaking excited. So with that being the case, we're gonna start chapter 98 and just see what happens. So I hope you all enjoy. I'm sorry for making you wait so long, but we're going to start 98, 99, and 100 of Heaven Official's Blessing. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Chapter 98, Bizarre Game Plan. The doors open to the fetus ghost thief? Fetus ghost thief? What? Okay, so the flower. Yes, let's get back to that damn flower. All right, a far gone memory was like a dust-covered picture, and we tried to wipe it clean. It was still blurry. So he doesn't quite remember. Of course he doesn't. He loosened his hand and picked up that flower, solemn and wordless. Hua Cheng put the brush down too and grinded the ink, like waiting to see what he's going to say, right? The flower's refreshing. Of course he wouldn't remember. Of course he wouldn't. It wasn't rare to see offerings of flowers in temples and palaces, only most would use bright reds or purples, large bouquets of fresh flowers, or handmade fake ones that would never wilt. Could it be that Crimson Rain sought flowers, sought for this kind of flower? Oh, well, the name, go back to it. Hua Cheng smiled. Gege has the premonition of gods. Ah, look at you. In between laughter, the two completed a set of compositions together, and the subject was still those 4 verses. Oh, just keep writing them over and over again. Oh, pretty good, frame it. Hearing him say pretty good, Xie Lian, when he said frame it, he, again, you're not thinking of hanging it on the wall, are you? If his deceased teachers were to see Xie Lian's involvement in such a set of compositions, they'd probably rise from the dead to haunt him as zombies. But Hua Cheng only laughed. No. I'm keeping it for myself. I'm not showing this to anyone. Oh! Just then, the two suddenly heard faint series of screaming from outside. Fire! Fire! Paradise Manor's on fire! What? Again? Again? It was silly to say again. Hua Cheng didn't seem worried and hurriedly put away the compositions. No need to worry, Gege. Just sit here and relax. I'll be back shortly. As if Xie Lian could sit back and relax. So I'll come with you. How come every time I come, Paradise Manor gets set on fire? His title of God of Misfortune was about to be ratified again. Oh. This time it had nothing to do with him. Being sorry was practically a habit by now. The two of them rushed back to Paradise Manor on the way. The entire main street was heavy with smoke. little ghosts and monsters. Oh, because they were at the temple and howling. When they saw Hua Cheng and Xie Lian arrive, they called out, "My lord, don't you worry, oh, your old lordship. The fire ain't big. It's already..." Why do I imagine they have like a Scottish accent? "It's already put out." Thanks for everyone's hard... Oh, Hua Cheng didn't show any response, but Xie Lian said, "Thank goodness, thanks for everyone's hard work." The little ghosts hadn't expected any kind of gratitude, and the "thanks for your hard work" came from the Lord's friend, no less. And they all became excited with delight. "It's not hard, it's nothing major, it's our duty!" Only then did Xie Lian realize for him to show gratitude was rather inappropriate, because he wasn't the master of this establishment. However, since Hua Cheng himself hadn't said anything, if Xie Lian said something, it shouldn't be too horrible. He reprimanded himself mentally and stopped worrying. The two entered the Paradise Manor and looked at where the arson started, and sure enough, it was a small area, nothing more than the corner of an insignificant small house. No wonder the fire was extinguished so fast. But Xie Lian became alarmed. He turned to Hua Cheng. The arsonist wasn't trying to play an innocent, gutsy prank, and this wasn't just for torching something either, more like a red herring attracting everyone's attention away. Oh, the fetus spirit! Before, when they left Paradise Manor, even having walked a long way, the fetus spirit continued to wail and cry. But now the voice was gone. Oh! Oh, he had placed the clay pot that contained the fetus spirit on a desk before them. The clay pot was still there, but when Xie Lian reached out and grabbed it, he immediately felt the weight was different. It was too light. Sure enough, there was nothing inside. Someone let the fetus spirit loose. It was stolen. That thing was injured in the troop of butterflies and badly wounded. It couldn't get far on its own. Well, then that's easy to take care of. So how long does your Paradise Manor have the guards that patrol the premises? See if they saw anyone suspicious. There are none. None? Yeah, there's never been any. Oh! No wonder when he snuck around Paradise Manor last time there were no guards to be seen. Xie Lian, but what about the half-moon officer? He had once thought it was because they were hidden so well he didn't notice, but he didn't realize there weren't any at all. You're that lax about Paradise Manor? Gege, have you ever paid attention to the doors in Paradise Manor? No. Is there something extraordinary about them? Correct. He pointed at the set of doors on the side of the chamber and said, "If one is not the master of this establishment, then those who take without permission what was originally inside that didn't even belong to them, even just one item, they will not be able to open the doors, and they'll be trapped inside the room." Xie Lian recalled the last time he came to Paradise Manor. At the time, he'd always opened the doors with dice. When he finally left, it was through the whirlwind created by the Windmaster, raising the roof, avoiding leaving through the doors. Oh! Those were all images of violence, and the more Xie Lian remembered, the more he thought he should stop thinking, feeling slightly ashamed. Then say if San Long were to steal a spiritual device from me and kept it within Paradise Manor, since I was the original owner, can I not take it away? Of course not. Once it's in my hands, it's mine. But don't wrong me, Gege. I would never steal any of your spiritual devices. Oh, of course, I knew that. I was just... That's why I said if. Besides, I don't really have any spiritual devices worth stealing anyway. But his jokes ended there. Hua Cheng smiled and continued. So to steal something from me without notice is impossible. Naturally, there's no need for guards. Xie Lian's first reaction was the one who stole the fetus spirit didn't leave through the doors and employed a different method. But looking around, the side chamber's roof showed no damage, and the floors looked pristine, and the walls were fine too, not a trace of any break-ins. He couldn't help but come up with a more skin-crawling thought. What if the one who stole the fetus spirit hadn't left and was still inside the chamber? Although there was nowhere in this side chamber to hide, still, there were plenty of ways in the world to go invisible. Maybe that thief was near them at this very moment, watching their every action quietly. He looked around intently, vigilant of any odd movement. There was no third person or ghost, though. Just then Hua Cheng chuckled. There's no need for Gege to be concerned. I have my own way of finding the fetus spirit thief. He actually looked mighty confident. Xie Lian turned to him, and after musing for a moment, he became pleasantly optimistic too. The two waited in silence. After a while, the sound of commotion came closer, and a large group of ghosts, demons, and monsters all came pouring in, gathering around outside the chamber like a flock of flapping birds. He's like Jareth. He's like the Goblin King. Hua Cheng is the Goblin King. And Xie Lian is Sarah from Labyrinth. I need them in these outfits. Now, please. My lord, what does your old lordship desire calling us over? At minimum, this crowd was close to 1,000 in number. Had it not been for the large courtyard and chambers of Paradise Manor, they might not all fit. The one who brought them was a masked man, and he reported to Hua Cheng. My lord, everyone who appeared on the streets today should all be here. The ghost city is also locked down. No one can leave. Oh, it was the same voice as that young man from last time, and Xie Lian couldn't help but steal a glance at him. My lord, did you catch the one who set the fire? They saying something was stolen even. They're tired of living and want to die again or what? Those insolent setting fires and stealing shit. They dare mess with the great ancestor. There's no way, my lord, to let him go. Although the crowd of ghosts wasn't talking about him, as the one who set the building on fire the last time, kidnapped someone and was let go by Hua Cheng, Xie Lian felt he was pierced by countless arrows. He softly cleared his throat, feeling more and more guilty. He peeked to look at Hua Cheng, but coincidentally met eyes with him as he also swept an unreadable look over, and Xie Lian immediately dropped his gaze. Then he could hear Hua Cheng say flatly, "The one who stole the fetus spirit can come forward themselves. Don't waste my time." Among Us? I thought it was something from outside. Who the hell is it? Just come forward already. The wave had calmed, but no one came forward. Very good. Brave as expected. Men on the left, women on the right, divide and line up. Although the demons and ghosts were puzzled, they didn't dare disobey Hua Cheng's word. They did as they were told, forming two large groups. The male ghosts squished on the left, their voices rough. The female ghosts on the right, each seductive and flirtatious. They shared a look and then went directly to the right side, walking through the female ghosts, tossing them looks going through 10 with each sweep of their eyes. After many steps, Xie Lian walked past a female ghost and paused slightly. The female wore a long dress, her face heavy with layers of white powder, terrifyingly pale. Her real face indiscernible, but it was somewhat familiar. My Lady Lan Chang, the one who confronted him in the ghost city. And she was taken aback as if she was the one who just saw a ghost. Sure enough, it was the female ghost Lan Chang who had clung to him on the streets of the ghost city, fought with the boar butcher and laughed that he couldn't get erect and spread that around. What? You're the one who said you can't get it up. I didn't wrong you. You gonna seek revenge and tell me to my lord? The female ghosts were all a little nervous hearing her, but they giggled softly. The female ghost Lan Chang was still a little afraid, becoming demure and no longer stirring anything up. Oh, like Hua Cheng just has to walk by her and she's terrified. My lady can talk however she wants about a joke like that. However, that fetus spirit has harmed many. It's blood heavy and it shouldn't be let loose, so please return it. She backed up in a hurry. Since she was in the crowd, she didn't get very far before she was caught. I don't know what you're saying. What fetus spirit? Please return it. Return what? I didn't have it. You accusing me of stealing from my lord's house? But everyone knows there's no way anything can be taken. Whatever we take can't be taken out. Oh. Paradise Manor on fire just happened. I've been in the street. I never left. If I stole anything, I wouldn't have the time to hide it. She opened her arms, showing off her empty hands, and even lifted her dress to prove she wasn't hiding anything. However, Xie Lian pointed out, my lady, the last time I met you, it was freezing cold, but you still dressed so lightly. Today the day is beautiful, and you're wearing a long dress. Why the sudden change? Are you hiding something? Then they realized she usually dressed revealingly. Xie Lian said lightly, which was very polite. Oh, of course. On the street, she'd almost always expose her cleavage, but today she was wearing a long dress covering her legs and waist completely, exceedingly strange. Besides, earlier when Hua Cheng was taking Xie Lian around to stroll the ghost city streets, they didn't see her anywhere. Oh, it's not me. He's the one who can't get it up. Oh. You didn't take what didn't belong to you. You only took away what was part of you. The fetus spirit is in your belly at this moment. Oh, it's hers! If the fetus spirit thief had no other ways to leave and didn't stick around the side chamber, then there can only be one explanation. The thief left the front doors openly. If the fetus spirit was already born, then it would be a child, an independent person. However, that fetus spirit was forcibly removed from its mother's womb before it reached term. Therefore, its mother stuffed it back into her belly. Then naturally count as something that belonged to her. No, it should be said that fetus spirit was no different than a piece of her flesh, a part of her body. After all, the blood bond between a mother and child was thick, and under the circumstances, they were but one body. So that female ghost can only naturally leave without harm, exit Paradise Manor openly. Oh, we're going to talk about this and come back to that paragraph. Therefore, the one who stole the fetus spirit must be a female ghost, as well as a mother to the child. Locking down the ghost city, then bringing forth all the female ghosts who appeared. Thinking back, Hua Cheng must have thought all this the moment they entered the side chamber. Oh. And then she covered her belly in a mad fit. Oh my god! Okay! All right, we're going to go on to this next chapter. Chapter 99. Bizarre game plan. Doors open to the fetus spirit ghost thief. 2. My lady. Long Cheng's face was as white as a sheet. She couldn't utter a single word. Suddenly, it was as if something in her belly exploded. Oh! Oh! Nope. Rolls of black smoke leaked out the seams. Oh my god! It was the fetus spirit in her womb that was thrashing about. Gege, stand back. It's fine. Long Cheng fell to her knees, her face twisting in agony. Listen to me. Be good. Just be good. Stop messing around. Lady Long Cheng just let it out first. Oh my god, MXTX! No, no, no! I'll keep him in my womb and raise him well for sure. He won't go out to harm anyone anymore. My lord, please, I beg you, don't take my son away. I've searched for him for centuries. Don't take my son away. Don't hand him to those scoundrels in the heavens. Oh, it seemed the ghosts and demons in the ghost city were aware that Xie Lian was of the heavenly realm after all. Long Cheng wailed and started rolling on the ground, holding her abdomen as if her belly no longer made part of her body and was instead its own live creature, shrinking at times, swelling at times, and moving around at all times. The black smoke was growing thicker. It must have regained some strength after being recovering in its mother's womb. It was ready to start trouble again. The crowd of female ghosts had broken up and went back to hold her down, yet they were powerless. All the other ghosts on the left clamored, "We got this!" and rushed to push her down. It was pandemonium. Xie Lian clenched his fist, shouting, "My lady Long Cheng, the power of the fetus in your belly is much stronger than yours. It can hurt you, but you couldn't bear to hurt it. You can't do anything. It will suck you dry sooner or later and break out of your body. Let it out now." If Long Cheng refused to let go of the thing hidden in her belly by herself, she was going to be sucked dry and ripped apart by that cruel and violent fetus spirit sooner or later, which would leave Xie Lian no choice but to personally cut it out himself. Although it might be better than watching her being ripped apart by her own son, unless there was really no other way, it really wasn't something he wanted to do. He didn't want to do it, and he certainly wouldn't want Hua Cheng to do it for him. But she was stubborn as a mule, and even as she wailed in agony, she refused to let this fetus spirit out. This couldn't go on for much longer, so Xie Lian would rather do it himself. "Excuse my imposition!" However, when his hand reached for Feng Shen's hilt, Hua Cheng immediately held him back, and telling him with a serious tone, "No need." At the same time, a flash of golden light suddenly erupted from the center of her abdomen, its rays stabbing at the crowd of ghosts and monsters. They all screamed, fleeing to give her room. What the shit? His eyes fixed on it when the golden light died down. The fetus spirit that was desperate to rush out seemed to be fettered by something, and Long Cheng's abdomen flattened down to its normal form. The thing that fettered it was a belt on her waist. The belt looked normal and indistinct, but when Xie Lian took a good look, he was astonished. Why would something like this be on you? Even if its color had faded from wash, Xie Lian could tell that it was a belt with something that belonged to the heavens. There were many objects in heaven that were artful spiritual devices. Thus, only in dire circumstances would they show themselves to protect their masters in a moment of urgency. Oh, is this like Ruyi then? Also, even if the embroidery pattern on it were heavily rubbed off and damaged, Xie Lian could still determine it must be the golden belt that only heavenly officials could possess. Looking at its make, it was from one of the upper court. In the heavenly realm, to gift a golden belt was a trendy act of elegance, and it possessed a special meaning. Oh my God, if a male official was to gift the belt to another, it was a gesture of affection, and there was no need to further explain what that special meaning would be. Thus, something like a belt would of course not be given away easily, not so easily lost either. Is it Pei Ming? Xie Lian, my lady, could it be your child? He trailed off suddenly. Remember, no matter if this was the layer of evil, to inquire such personal details of a woman in public wasn't a courteous thing to do. He cut himself off. But Long Cheng instantly cried, "No! I haven't even said anything. What are you saying no to? Did you depend on this golden belt to support yourself throughout the past 700-800 years?" Hearing this, all the female ghosts were stunned. Holy shit, Long Cheng, you're that old? Didn't you say you were only 300 and something? No, she even said she was 200 before. You falsifying your age! That fetus spirit had to be about 700 to 800 years of cultivation. So its mother would naturally be around that age too. However, that female ghost Long Chong didn't possess that heavy of a grudge, so to be able to stay in the corporal world for so long as a normal ghost, the golden belt with such immense spiritual powers must have helped her out a great deal. If the father of the fetus spirit was a heavenly official, it would make sense for it to be so vicious. A heavenly official having an affair with a mortal woman, who knows if he ended up abandoning or neglecting her. But that woman met a violent end, her baby forcibly removed from her womb. Now both mother and son had become of the ghost realm, and that fetus could very well have murdered countless others. No matter what, this affair was no less serious than the affair with Shang-Ji, and it even seemed rather similar. Oh my God! But we don't know. We don't know if it's Pei Ming's kid. We don't know. As for how to deal with this, Xie Lian already decided. San Long, this lady. Do what you must. No need to ask me. Once receiving permission, he turned to Long Chong. Just then, all the ghosts were demanding, Long Chong, who's the dad to your baby? What an outrage! Did he only care for killing, but not burial? He only cared to knock you up, but not raise the kid? Who is it? You gotta avenge yourself. Long Chong gritted her teeth and glared at Xie Lian. Who else can it be? She hadn't said the name, but Xie Lian understood. Come to the heavenly court with me. No! Of course it was useless for her to say no. Willing or not, Xie Lian must take her away. Xie Lian hardened his expression and said solemnly, the fetus spirit is exceedingly violent. Who knows how much blood is on its hands? This case has become too convoluted. You can't protect it. This must be confronted and reported to the heavenly court. If the heavenly official is an honest one, or if there was some kind of misunderstanding between you, then we can have you and your child be recognized and have the matter with the child be dealt with. If that heavenly official has wronged you or did something even worse, then there's even more reason for you to demand justice. No matter what, this fetus spirit is your son, but also his son. How can anyone else interfere if the father is ignorant of this affair? The ghosts all thought his speech made sense. Also, if they let Long Chong take her son to cause a riot in the heavens, then how exciting would that be? The bigger the chaos, the better even. So they all urged, yes, Long Chong, what are you afraid of? Go settle your score with that guy. If he won't recognize you, then we'll burn down his temples. I'll make a trip up to the heavenly court this instant and report this affair at once. But she was still objecting. She knew she couldn't stop him. After snapping back from her shock, she suddenly bowed down to Hua Cheng and said, my lord, thank you for your kindness and grace in sheltering me. Xie Lian was taken aback. She continued, Long Chong, setting fires to Paradise Manor was out of desperation and broke the rules of the ghost city. I am ever so sorry. I pray my lord won't hold it against me. She had always been a sauntering shrew, but when she opened her mouth now, it was as if she was a different person, making many of the demons and monsters who were familiar with her watch in shock. Hua Cheng still appeared indifferent. He turned to Xie Lian. Gege came by in too much of a hurry this time. I'll wait for you to come down again and host you properly next time. Well, yeah. I'd be like, we're going to take this out for 5 minutes. I will be right back. Whew. Xie Lian nodded and took Long Chong and rushed straight to the heavens. So is it Pei Ming's or is it not? We would think it'd be Pei Ming's because, I mean, a womanizer with ghosts and mortals and everything, you would think it's Pei Ming's, but what if it's not? Who gave her the golden belt? Oh! As he walked down the main streets of the heavenly court, he announced in a spiritual communication rate, everyone, please do make their way to the Great Martial Hall. There's something that needs to be discussed. Oh my God, we're going to have like a Maury fathered reveal right here in the heavenly court. What the fudge? He exited the array the moment he was done and didn't waste any time bringing Long Chong to the Great Martial Hall. Due to the fact that Long Chong was a female ghost and couldn't enter the Golden Pavilion, Xie Lian waited outside with her for a moment until Junwoo himself arrived and gave permission before she was allowed in. So this ghost with this ghost baby are in the heavenly court? What is this? It didn't take long before all the heavenly officials present made their way to the hall, and when they saw that crude female ghost in heavy makeup who stood clashingly next to Xie Lian, they were bewildered. A black-clad heavenly official strolled into the hall, and when he saw what was in the center, he paused for a moment. It was Mu Ching. Oh, she glanced at him and immediately lowered her head, her lips quivering. He didn't show any reaction, only asked plainly, "Your Highness, who is that woman?" Hearing the word "Your Highness," Long Chong's face changed and looked at Xie Lian as if she was remembering something, but she wasn't too sure. Just then, both the wind and water masters arrived too. Oh my god, a pair of brothers who looked quite similar to each other, each with their own fans fanning gently, their white robes fluttering, painting a beautiful picture. Shi Qingshan fanned as he spoke. "Yeah, Temple Master, why'd you bring up a female ghost today?" Xie Lian was puzzled. "Temple Master? What Temple Master? Of Puchi Shrine? Why the sudden address?" Then he realized Shi Qingshan probably meant Temple Master of Chonding Temple. Ah, he didn't know how to acknowledge the title and could only pretend he didn't hear. But the Windmaster was cheerfully pleased. He greeted around and turned to the ghost. "Eh? This female ghost, Zhe, has something in her belly. Why do I feel it's..." he said as he approached, looking as if he wanted to touch. But Shi Wudu snapped his fan shut and shouted, "Qingshan!" Shi Qingshan's hand instantly shrank back as he tried to justify himself. I just thought there was an aura of evil, and I wanted to see if there was something dangerous." Shi Wudu admonished, "You're a man and a heavenly official. This is the Great Martial Hall. How can you do something so disgraceful? Don't turn into a woman either. Even in a woman's form, it's equally disgraceful. Change back right this instant." Ling Wen shook his head. So he's still in male form too. Folded a stack of documents and reports under his arm and approached to place his hand on Lan Chan's belly. After a moment of pause, he dropped his hand and hummed, "What a vicious fetus spirit. How many hundreds of years old?" "About 700 to 800, Xie Lian answered. He gave an account of the 2 times he'd met the fetus spirit and how the fetus spirit led to finding the female ghost after having harmed pregnant women. He didn't bring up the details of Hua Cheng and the ghost city, and Long Chong would naturally remain quiet on the subject. He's talk about this. After he finished, Xie Lian said, "And that was how it came to be. I don't know if the heavenly officials is still in this world or still working, or if there's some misunderstanding in all of this, or whether he knew. That's why I brought this lady up here." Feng Shen frowned. If there wasn't any misunderstanding and he knew about the mother and the child, to let them be without any communication is too irresponsible. Pei Ming crossed his arms and commented leisurely, "I completely agree with General Nanyang. For him to say this is too irresponsible! Don't know which heavenly colleague this discarded baggage belongs to. Oh! But if he's on duty, he best come forward himself." Just as he finished, he felt countless eyes on him, and it was a blanket of silence inside the Great Martial Hall! After a moment, Pei Ming said, "Do you all have some sort of misunderstanding of me?" "I don't think it's a misunderstanding," said the Windmaster. "More like we know you all too well." "It's not me!" Everyone laughed dryly, and even Shi Wudu and Ling Wen didn't look like they were convinced. Pei Ming was growing frustrated and supported his temple, explaining with an earnest voice, I did have some flings with women of the ghost realm before, but I don't really recognize this woman." If those words were taken seriously, it was believable. How could the man himself not know who he had a past with? Pei Ming's promiscuity might have been criticized by many, but he had never denied any affairs and never denounced anything he'd done, except for Ling Wen. It wasn't like he couldn't afford it. The women who had an affair with him, unless they were like Shangji, who no longer wanted to follow him, they were all at least guaranteed a life of riches and care, soaking in wealth and sweetness. If this female ghost truly had a fleeting affair with Pei Ming whilst alive, we'll talk about this. She shouldn't have suffered having her womb ripped open, her son robbed, and becoming a vicious ghost. Besides, Pei Ming had high standards when it came to women. Those who he flirted with were extraordinary in appearance, and he also preferred beauties with a natural look. As everyone could see in the hall, Long Chong had such a heavy layer of makeup on, her real face was indiscernible. Her general looks, class, and behavior were all far different from the chosen lovers Pei Ming usually had, so when he claimed it wasn't him, everyone silently believed somewhat. Only it was still just silently and somewhat. With such an occasion to see General Pei checkmated, how fun was that? And so they stood by and watched him argue with a smile, amused and entertained. At first, Xie Lian also thought the father was more likely to be Pei Ming. He had a track record after all, but watching Pei Ming's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. So Xie Lian wasn't so certain anymore. He recalled Hua Cheng saying that Pei Ming wasn't a shady man, that there wasn't anything to be afraid of. So after some contemplation, he added, "Before the Lady Long Chong, did reply ambiguously, "Who else can it be?" So I had also assumed. But since General Pei denies such claims, maybe there's some misunderstanding. It can't be the same person every time, after all, so why don't we ask around? Not every baby daddy can be Pei Ming's. Unexpectedly, Long Chan suddenly spoke up. It's not him. It's not him. What? So it's not? Xie Wudu politely commented, so it actually isn't. Pei Ming turned to Xie Wudu and Ling Wen. I already said it wasn't. The two of you are insulted, adding insult to injury. Just you wait. Oh, that was Pei Ming saying that. The heavenly officials were all disappointed, but became even more excited. After all, Pei Ming had always produced wanton scandals, so even if it was him, it wasn't anything new. If it wasn't him, however, it meant quite likely there was another male official, present or not, who might be creating a new wave. How could they not be thrilled? Then who is it? You. Xie Lian thought she was finished and asked, "What about me?" I said that man is you. What? No! 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 Chapter 100, Mad Confrontation. Laughter of ridicule without closure. If Long Cheng had said something like, "The one who killed me was you," it still wouldn't be as startling, a bolt from the blue, as this proclamation. Xie Lian was practically knocked out by her thunderbolt. Me? Upon the throne, even Jun Woo's hands that was supporting his temple seemed to have slipped. Oh my god! He's like, what? No. The heavenly officials were all shocked into silence and immediately turned towards the emperor. Jun Woo's hands righted itself, continuing to appear somber with his head in his hand. The officials looked to Xie Lian in unison. Was this it, the third banishment to come before the eyes of all? Xie Lian felt his entire mind was numb and shaking and forced himself to swallow back the habitually used "I can't get erect" that almost escaped through his teeth. Oh, yeah, he didn't want to say this in front of the heavenly realm. That was only a casual excuse, not appropriate to be used in circumstances like these. Besides, there were already vulgar commentary that passed around in private in the upper court in regards to various martial gods and their attitudes towards women. When Feng Xin saw women, he'd stay respectively far away. Lon Chanchu blushed the moment he saw women. Ah! Mu Qing refused to see ugly women. When Pei Su saw women, he'd be expressionless. But who knew what he was actually thinking? Chan Jishin didn't even have a woman on his mind. Ha ha! And Pei Ming's mind was all women. Oh, interesting. If Xie Lian made his excuses now, no doubt his name would be added to the list. My Lady Long Chong, please calm down. There's definitely no such possibility. Yes, it is. It's you, the Crown Prince of Shanla. Even though the timing of when this woman died was after his ascension and could maybe match up, wouldn't he be better than anyone whether he'd met her before? Wouldn't he know better than anyone if he'd met her before? In between all the whispering going around, Xie Lian became solemn and said sternly, "My lady, I may not be a saint, but I still know of a faithful heart. If I don't love someone, I would never cross any lines with that person. If I did, then even if I must beg and collect junk, busk and perform in the streets to feed my family, I would still never allow that person to suffer in any bit of grievance. You are in the great martial palace. Do not speak falsehoods." Oh. Shi Qingshang piped up too. If it really was His Highness who committed such a deed, why would he bring this female ghost JJ up to the heavens to confront anyone? And why is it only now that this Lady Long Chong recognized him? Just thinking about it makes no sense. It was easy to see that it didn't make sense. Yet with such a show, no one cared if it made no sense. The crowd maintained a reserved attitude. And there was even an official who blindly guessed, well, maybe it's like this. Perhaps His Highness lost his memory, so he doesn't remember things he's done. Honestly, I think it's more believable that he's bold enough to think that maybe after 800 years, no one would recognize him. Xie Lian was speechless and cautioned the crowd to prove something impossible by fabricating something even more inconceivable is a dangerous path to go down, my lords. On the side, Feng Xin looked like he wanted to say something, but looking like he couldn't make up his mind, he paused, and in the end remained silent. Junwu cleared his throat and questioned, "Shanla, how many golden belts did you have in your possession in the past?" "Too many, at least 10. Mu Qing answered flatly, "Over 40, each with different embroidery and patterns." It was only after the words left his lips that he realized it was improper and shut up. There was already people who instantly remembered that Mu Qing used to be Xie Lian's personal attendant and took care of his daily living, which was how he had known such details. Many of the officials couldn't help but think, just golden belts alone, and there were over 40. His Highness the Crown Prince really lived an extraordinarily luxurious life. Not just the others, even Xie Lian himself was thinking back and felt rather embarrassed. Back then, he changed into a different extravagant ensemble every day, and his belts changed each time, matching with whatever outfit he had on. Unlike now, where in an entire year, he'd only have the 3 sets of clothing to wear over and over again. Those 3 sets all looked exactly the same, too, and with just one look, people must think he was so poor he had only 1 set of clothes. Junwoo asked, "And where are they now? Do you remember?" Not really. They're things from 800 years ago, after all. I've long forgotten where they've gone." Not just because they were tossed out, but the main reason was because he and Feng Shen had often pawned items off whenever things got tight. That's why they both went, together. Too many were pawned away, and whether there were any belts left, he couldn't really remember. Feng Shen didn't have the heart to discuss the subject. Getting into that. But still said to be able to obtain that golden belt, it must have been given by someone else or picked up somewhere. Junwoo hadn't actually expected Xie Lian to remember either, and said, "Shanla, I remember that your cultivation method demands a body of purity, lest your spiritual power be greatly damaged." "Yes," Xie Lian said. The Windmaster piped up again. "Well, just by looking at His Highness, I can tell he must have cultivated such a path, so I was right." "If that's the case, never mind knocking anyone up. I bet he's never even held anyone's hand." Xie Lian was about to say, "That's right," when suddenly there was a pale white slender hand, cool as jade, reflected upon a bright red wedding veil. Its 3rd finger knotted with a thin red thread. The "that's right" got stuck in his throat, no longer able to roll out. Everyone in the hall was staring at him intently, and with just one look it was obvious that this stump meant "that's not true." However, "never held hands" was too low of a standard, and even if his hands weren't held, it wasn't a big deal. The Windmaster immediately added, "Even if he's held hands, he must never have kissed anyone before." Xie Lian was about to say "that's right" again, but this time before his eyes suddenly floated stream after stream of crystal air-like bubbles, the translucent beads dispersing. Then there was an exceptionally handsome face, eyes closed, a small widow's peak on top of that shapely forehead, beautiful to behold. This time, not only did not a single word squeeze out, his entire face flushed bright red. Instantly, everyone in the heavenly official in the hall understood, and dry coughs sounded all around. Shi Jingzhang was starting to regret saying anything, knocking his fan over his head once, and secretly passed a message to Xie Lian through their private communication array. "Sorry about that, Your Highness. I only wanted to convince everyone that you're really an innocent sort, but I hadn't realized you weren't. So you've had such experiences. I really couldn't tell." "That I really couldn't tell," shattered Xie Lian's will. He choked out with difficulty. "Don't say any more. That was an accident." Junwoo's hand folded into a fist as he pressed it against his lips, clearing his throat loudly. "Very good. You haven't violated your vows in these years, correct?" "Yes." "Then that'll be easy." Junwoo said, "I have a sword here named Yanzhen, and it possesses a particular ability. Should the blood of a virgin flow upon it, it shall not be stained, but become brighter as it was washed. Take a drop of your blood and drip upon it, and we shall see the truth." Oh. Although everyone had known for years that Junwoo had a hobby of collecting rare and strange swords, still all the heavenly officials thought in their minds, "Why does my lord have all these messed up swords? What's the use in collecting these for cases like these?" Xie Lian himself was feeling a little more confused by the situation, only wanted to end as soon as possible. Lingwen brought forth that sensual Yanzhen sword and immediately slid the blade across his hands. Countless others watched intently, and Shi Qingshang clapped. "Oh, good, case closed!" Drops of blood slid past the blade, leaving not a trace, as expected. The proof was as solid as the mountains, and the crowd could only break up. I see. Then who can it be?" Their voices were lackluster, dripping with disappointment. Lingwen turned to Lanchan politely. "My lady, please tell us honestly just who this heavenly official is. The fetus spirit in your womb is unruly, and your powers aren't strong. So only its blood-bound father can calm and discipline it. A Yanzhen translates to glamorous virtue. Unexpectedly." Before he finished, Long Chung pointed at Lingwen and cried, "You! That man is you!" Lingwen had probably only just come from his temple to attend the meeting and was in the form of a man. To suddenly be pointed as a child's father by Long Chung, he was in a baffled shock. All the heavenly officials spat out and Pei Ming chortled, "Noble G, did you go find a nice girl to knock up after finishing administering your purports?" Oh, this is probably what was called instant karma. Lingwen shook his head and gratefully declined Shi Wudu's compassionate gesture of wanting to give his good nephew a red packet. A red packet. His expression calmed and he said, I didn't finish and I've no time. After such a riotous back and forth and accusing a number of officials, naturally no one would believe Long Chong anymore. Feng Shen couldn't watch any longer and said grumpily, I get it. This female ghost was completely crazy from the start and only here to throw around blame. She's here to stir up trouble. Long Chong cackled, sounding more and more like a crazy hag. If this should continue, who knows who she'll accuse next? The heavenly officials all changed their tune. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that golden belt was stolen. To be fair, I have more than one golden belt. I can't even be sure how many I have exactly, and I don't remember if I kept them away properly. But Long Chong wouldn't let anything go. Putting her hands on her hips, she screamed, What are you trying to get away? Too late. No way. It is you, or it's you. At this point, it was obvious she was pointing fingers randomly. Even Ming Yi, who was standing in a corner silently, focusing on chewing on whatever his cheeks were stuffed with, was forcibly recognized as the father once. It was chaos in the great hall and everyone was fleeing. Take her away. Don't let her spout any more nonsense. This JJ isn't my type. Isn't my type. Don't you slander me. So disgraceful. Junwoo waved his hand and a junior official came to take Long Chong down. Even as she was dragged out of the great martial hall, she continued to scream and laugh shrilly. The officials within the hall could finally calm their hearts and stand back in position, their heads throbbing. At first, everyone had thought the matter didn't involve them, and they were only there for a good show, but now they weren't so sure whether a bucket of shit was going to get thrown over their heads, maybe even landing themselves a new play in the mortal realm of a female ghost lover with gaudy makeup and a ghost son who had murdered thousands. Feeling the danger, they all threw up their hands with abandon. There's no way to investigate this matter. I think she simply is mad in the head. No need to investigate. It'd be a waste of time. Just lock her up. This can very well be in the ghost realm, causing trouble on purpose. Xie Lian didn't agree, however. Earlier, on the way here, Lady Chong was quite conscient. So why did she become this way the moment she entered the Great Martial Hall? I'm afraid it's not something that can be explained away with a simple mad in the head. Thus the crowd broke down to two sides, debating and arguing. In the end, the conclusion was still that never-changing we'll see. After the meeting was dismissed, he bid farewell to Shi Qingchong, who promised he'd descend in a few days to visit and play. Aw, and Xie Lian walked out the Great Martial Hall, sighing mentally. They all say the Palace of Ling Wen is inefficient, but it can't be helped. Every time we gather to discuss anything, there's so much noise and vaguity, and in the end, the conclusions are mostly nothing concrete. So how can the Palace of Ling Wen conduct anything? Just then, he sensed someone from behind coming close, and he turned to see it was Feng Shen. Slightly taken aback, he hadn't even greeted Feng Shen before Feng Shen hastily said under his breath, Watch out for Mu Qing. Mu Qing? When he entered the hall, the female ghost reacted oddly, like she was afraid of him. He noticed. I don't care for other people's personal affairs, but in any case, just watch yourself. He hurried away after saying this. Xie Lian stood where he was and waited till Feng Shen was gone before he started again. Even though it wasn't noticeable in his expression, Xie Lian had actually been paying close attention to every heavenly official's minute expressions, as well as Long Chong's reaction. Naturally, he didn't miss Mu Qing. However, he didn't think the father of that fetus spirit was likely to be Mu Qing. Xie Lian couldn't even imagine Mu Qing doing such a thing. Undeniably, Mu Qing was someone who focused heart and mind on cultivation, improving his martial arts and expanding his territory, growing believers. Besides, they practiced the same cultivation method, and he would never ruin his cultivation by touching women. However, Mu Qing knew Long Chong. That was definitely not wrong. But with so few clues, Xie Lian shook his head and descended from the heavenly court. With the fetus spirit subdued and Long Ying and Guzi settled in that wealthy merchant's abode with food and drink, there was nothing to worry about. Oh my God! He just left them with the merchant! Oh my God! That's just like, well, they're fine. They've got food and water. It's payment, right? Oh my God! Still, it wasn't good for him to be away for too long. If he took his time without even a shadow of him, the wealthy merchant would probably start grousing. Thus, the moment Xie Lian descended, he went straight for the town of Puqi. When that wealthy merchant saw him, he immediately clutched his hands and cried excitedly, Dao Zhang, venerable. You slept in my mistress's chamber last night and the doors were all locked, yet this morning when we opened up, I couldn't believe my eyes. You disappeared into thin air. Strong, too strong. So, did you catch the monster? It's caught, don't worry. Everything's fine now. How are the two children I brought with me? It was like that wealthy merchant received absolution and cried joyously, Oh, good, they're very good. They didn't eat much at all. Daozong, where's your Qiandong temple? I'm going to go donate and return my gratitude. From today onwards, I will hang my title as one of your worshippers in your temple and let none fight me. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But no matter what, he had expanded his numbers of new worshippers, and one that was rich too, so he was feeling rather glad. He lectured and nagged that wealthy merchant the ways of virtue, advising him not to be so promiscuous in the future, to be more devoted and loving to his wife and family, and finally told him to visit the Pucci shrine on another day. And thus Xie Lian left with Long Ying and Guzi in tow. Oh! The three returned to the Pucci village and came before the Pucci shrine. Xie Lian took that please donate and help with renovation sign and placed it in a more conspicuous spot, secretly hoping that when that wealthy merchant came and he could see immediately that he'd push the doors open and enter the shrine. However, the moment he opened the door, he sensed something different with the place. Walking into the shrine, sure enough, it was very different. The floors of the place had been swept. The altar table and chairs had been wiped, dust had been cleared, and even the trash in the corner had been cleaned out. It was like the lady river snail had paid a visit. Everything was clean too. Even Shirong was gone. With his disappearance, it was like the entire place was spacious and bright. And even the air had cleared somewhat. However, Guzi had carried in his arms the meat pies he especially brought from town, and when he peeked in and didn't see anyone, he was anxious. Big brother, where's Dad? Xie Lian immediately turned around. He hadn't even left the doors before sensing a dangerous, chilling light attacking. Instantly, he pulled out Feng Shen and struck back and clung the chilling shrine. Shine was struck out high into the air, falling miles away. He unsheathed as fast as lightning and sheathed just as fast. Returning Feng Shen to his place, he let out a puff of breath and immediately became puzzled. That's it? How come after that flash there was no mere follow-up moves? He turned to look at the chilling light after he had struck, and it landed on the ground far away. Crookedly embedded into the earth, looking at it from a far distance, that curved silver arch was appearing more and more familiar. Xie Lian brought the two children over, and when he saw clearly what it was, he immediately knelt down. He exclaimed, Isn't this a Ming? What's wrong? Asking what's wrong to a scimitar was an extremely odd sight. It's like it's a dog. A few farmers who walked past watched Xie Lian strangely and elbowed each other secretly. Look at that man, he's talking to a knife! Yeah, I see it. That's freaky. Let's get out of here. Oh my god! The Lady River Snail is a character from folklore who had once saved a fisherman and was kept in his house. When he was gone during the day, she transformed into a girl and performed domestic duties. Once he found out, they lived happily ever after. However, Xie Lian had to ask because Ming's entire blade body, including the silver contoured eye on the hilt, was shaking violently. It was as if it had contracted a disease. It was shaking harder by the minute. Xie Lian reached out in spite of himself and asked worriedly, Did I hurt you just now? Oh, what? No! Oh, come on! Oh, come on! Ah, that's it? That's it. Are you kidding me? Oh, y'all. I owe Pei Ming an apology. Man, those chapters were, I was not expecting there to be like a MAURY style father reveal in the heavenly realms. Things just I realize, you know what? The heavenly realm is like a constant barrage of like trashy reality TV. It's what it really is. It's just like we got brawls, we got bad like gossipy performances, we have like father reveals and scandals. It's just like the National Enquirer is just the heavenly realm 24/7. No wonder Jun Wudo is just like, I need to get out of here, but I can't get out of here. He's like the CEO that can't leave because he needs his pension. So it's just, wow. I do owe Pei Ming an apology because I was hardcore like blaming him. I was like, this is your baby, your fetus spirit, you're the father, how dare you? But he's not. So, he doesn't do uggos. I don't know if it says more for his character that he's not the dad, or says less that he's just like, I ain't getting with ugly bitches. I'm like, Pei Ming, oh God. I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know. Hey, he likes all natural. As someone who doesn't wear hardly any makeup except lipstick. No, Pei Ming is not my type. Absolutely not. No, I'm not for a womanizer. No, I'm more of into like a Hua Cheng type character for sure. Like I'm into like the hopeless devoted more than the hit it and quit it type that is Pei Ming. Well, these chapters were rather interesting, right? and still setting up stuff, because we're nearly to the end of the volume now. We've only got like, I think I'm going to do 2 more recordings. I have like 5 chapters left. I don't think I'm going to do all 5 in one sitting because that seems like a lot. So it'll probably be split them into 2 sections. I'll ask Discord about that and see what they think. Maybe they think reading all 5 would be fine. I don't know. Maybe, or they'll be like, you need to split it into 3 and 2. I'll ask Patreon and Discord what they think. But we've got, you know, just a wee chunk left of volume 3. I think I've got it planned out. We should start volume 4 in March. So that's exciting. But we do get one picture. It's fun. It is... It's of the Maury Povich show where we're doing like a Who's the Father, and you have Lan Chan there. Xie Lian is like, I am still a virgin, and I think that's Ling Wen. I think Ling Wen is holding the sword there. Ling Wen looks the most unamused. Ling Wen looks the most unamused in their man form. It's weird seeing Ling Wen as a man. It's interesting. And then Jun Woo's up there like, what the fudge? I like the moment Xie Lian was like, well, he was like, he's like, you've never held hands with anyone. He's like, again, we'll talk about that. Oh my God. I feel like the Windmaster's like, oh my God, I didn't know. It didn't seem like you'd kissed anybody before. I'm so sorry, but we need to talk about this later. I still think that the Windmaster is the biggest wingman, wingwoman for Xie Lian. It is going to be like, okay, so who'd you kiss? What was this accident? I need to know the gossip. We need to talk about this over tea. Let's do this. The Windmaster may be in my top 3 characters right now of the show, of the series. I think it's Hua Cheng, Xie Lian, and the Windmaster are my 3 favorites, because the Windmaster, there's just something about whenever they are in the book, whenever they show up, there's just this air, like everything visibly like lifts. It's just, everything gets brighter. They were noticeably absent in the flashback chapters. The Windmaster not being in the flashback chapters, noticeable, because everything just got so down. Like, could you imagine the Windmaster against Bai Wuxiang? Like, girl, take that mask off! And Bai Wuxiang's like, what? I need this. I need to cosplay as Bai Wuxiang and have the Windmaster be like, you leave Xie Lian alone! Bai Wuxiang just like, skittering away like a cockroach. But yeah, so there's a lot happening in these chapters, and I brought Whiteboard Kun out because I wanted to note some things, because I had some theories, not only some theories that I want to talk about, but also there's some things that MXTX brings up in these chapters, and I'm like, wow, we are putting some social commentary into these chapters very subtly, but I'm like, and maybe it's not social commentary, but the way that I read it, I was like, oh, we're saying this. Okay, MXTX, you're gonna bring out this commentary. All right, let's do this. But yeah, so the idea of the ghost thief, so of course, Xie Lian does not remember the flower. Of course he doesn't. Why are we not surprised? He doesn't remember the flower. Sure, he doesn't. Okay. But Hua Cheng's like, and the thing about it is, what I do appreciate about Hua Cheng is that it is very obvious to us, the audience at this point, that Hua Cheng is trying to get Xie Lian to remember him from all those years ago. But Hua Cheng also recognizes that Xie Lian's past is, 1, quite traumatic, and 2, is a part of himself that is no longer something Xie Lian is not the same person he was 800 years ago, nor should he be. And so Hua Cheng is being respectful, being like, I don't want to dredge up your past. I don't want to bring that up. I don't want to bring up something that's going to traumatize you and bring up all these awful memories. Even, because here's the thing, Hua Cheng could come across as someone that would want Xie Lian to remember him because he loves him so much. And he's like, I want you to remember me and know how much I loved you. But Hua Cheng is so considerate of Xie Lian, being like, I know that while it would benefit me to bring up your past and the fact that I've done all these things for you and to show you who I am so that you know this, this is the same person that's loved you all these years. Hua Cheng could bring up all of that to benefit himself, but he chooses not to because he knows the harm it would cause Xie Lian. And he's like, I don't want to do that. So he chooses the humble route of saying, I'll keep leaving these context clues, keep leaving these breadcrumbs, and maybe one day you'll remember. And if you remember one day and you accept that I am who I am, then we'll go from there. But that is a hard row, especially when the man you love is right in front of you and he doesn't remember and he doesn't get it. And Hua Cheng's like, maybe one day. Like that's hard, right? And but he's like, I just kissed Xie Lian. I don't want to overstep my bounds. I don't want to get Xie Lian too riled up and make him run away. He's like, Xie Lian's a baby deer, and Hua Cheng's like holding the food out, being like, eat from my hand, Gege, but don't run away. Like, it's a very delicate balance. And so Hua Cheng, he's in it for the long haul, clearly. But man, I admire him for just being like, yep, that's that flower. It's the one that I've been seeking after for you all these years, like as the camera slowly zooms in. But yeah, so then they complete a calligraphy version of the verses that they've been practicing the same verses over and over again. A romance, like, come on, MXTX. And the idea that Hua Cheng's like, that's really good, I'm gonna frame it. And Xie Lian's like, it's not good, one, and why would you frame it? And then he's like, oh, you shouldn't hang this up, like, it's an embarrassment of calligraphy. And Hua Cheng's saying, I'm keeping this for myself. I'm not showing this to anyone. I was like, ha ha ha! He's like, this is going above our bed, Xie Lian. And by our bed, I mean our bed. Like, that you'll eventually come here and live with me, or I'll bring it to Poochie Shrine and hang it above our bed. I'm like, he's like, no one will see this but us. It's only for us. Like, Hua Cheng, oh my God. I was like, whoo! And Xie Lian, whoo! Like, just breezing over his head. I'm like, the Windmaster couldn't make that stuff go over his head any harder. I was like, Xie Lian, my dear. So, the Paradise Manor being on fire again. Xie Lian, I like the Xie Lian's thing is like, how come every time I come, Paradise Manor's on fire? And the short answer is because he needs to move into Poochie Shrine with you. That's the short answer. He needs to leave Paradise Manor. Xie Lian doesn't get, again, in his naivete, he does not get that Paradise Manor is just a front. It's just an illusion. Hua Cheng doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about Paradise Manor. It's the irony of all ironies is its title, because it's not paradise for Hua Cheng because Xie Lian's not in it with him. It's just an illusion of fake title, something to make him look high and mighty so that the other ghosts will respect him. But in all reality, I feel like if Xie Lian said, come live with me at Poochie Shrine, he would pack up all of his things in an instant, burn Paradise Manor to the ground, and say, peace out, ghosts, and go live with Xie Lian forever. I'm fully convinced he would do that in a heartbeat if Xie Lian asked him. Without a doubt. But so the irony is that Xie Lian is concerned about hurting this place that Hua Cheng has no value in. He has no stake in it at all. It's just an illusion. And Xie Lian thinks that it's really important to him. And it's like, oh, no, you don't get it, sweetheart. And then he brings up the idea of, is it the fact that I'm the god of misfortune? He's like, am I the god of misfortune and that's causing it to burn down every time I come? And it's like, no, because we've established that Hua Cheng kind of resists all that. So that's not the case. But the fact that Xie Lian is, he's still self-doubting and still blaming himself, right? It's less and less than before, but it's still there. And Hua Cheng's just kind of like, stop blaming yourself, right? But I love that all the ghosts come. And so this is rather interesting, right? This is kind of interesting, is that we compare the ghost realm and the ghost realm and the heavenly realm, right? So in the ghost realm, there is the idea that the ghosts are all clamoring for Hua Cheng's favor. That he's the ghost king, right? I got such Labyrinth vibes. All the ghosts coming up. Have you ever seen Labyrinth? It's from the 1980s. Has David Bowie in it. David Bowie is the Goblin King Jareth. And Jennifer Connelly is Sarah, who's this girl that the Goblin King is in love with, right? And she's rather common. I want fan art of this now, and I would draw it in a heartbeat because Sarah in the movie wears like this big puffy white sleeve and this white vest. Could so see Xie Lian in it, and Hua Cheng as Gareth would have like the very tight pants that reveal everything. So that caused many a young individual's sexual awakening, much like it would Xie Lian. So yeah. But all I could think of was the ghosts coming out like little goblins and being like, oh, the Goblin King, the Ghost King, and Hua Cheng being like, yes. Like I just, was it tra-la-la? But anyway. So, as Huckleberry's bringing me his toy. So, yeah, they all come out to him. Nothing tra-la-la. I'm just thinking, now I'm going to quote Labyrinth, so I'm going to stop. But now, all of the ghosts come out and say that we were able to stop the fire. It was fine. It wasn't anything bad. But Xie Lian correctly figures out that it was all a lure to get them to go there and not realize that the fetus spirit was gone. I give MXTX a lot of props because they connected the story with the fetus spirit very succinctly. Like having Long Chong set up from the start, way back in volume 2, having that set up way back then, all coming full circle, having her not present in the chapters before, and us, the audience, being like, oh, she's just not here. But it all being that she went to go get the fetus spirit, having it all connected. Amazing. But there are still some mysteries. So we're going to put those right here. Our mysteries. There are several that are brought up in this chapter. Several mysteries. What I was getting to at the ghost realm before I was interrupted with thoughts of David Bowie and skin tight pants was the idea that the ghost realm, the ghosts, they're all clamoring for Hua Cheng's favor. They're all like want to get on his good side, right? In the heavenly realm, Junwoo it's kind of not the same. It's weird. In the heavenly realm, they don't necessarily clamor around Junwoo. They just assume Junwoo is going to pick. They view him as impartial, right? And the ghosts kind of view Hua Cheng as impartial too. But it's interesting. The ghosts kind of like view Hua Cheng almost as a heavenly official himself. Like when Long Chong she tells Hua Cheng, thank you for taking me in. Thank you for giving me this place to stay. Thank you for sheltering me, giving her sanctuary. Like, that's interesting. And obviously, Hua Cheng is not the father. Hua Cheng has nothing to do with women. Absolutely not. But what's interesting is that Hua Cheng acts very indifferent. He's like, Like, he doesn't want to show that he cares, but it's kind of one of those moments where it's like, okay, yes, you are a ghost, a supreme ghost, and you're supposed to be the opposite of the heavenly realm, but yet you did this for her, and you don't want to take credit for it. Okay. All right. Like it felt like a moment where it was slowly revealing a little bit of Hua Cheng caring underneath the surface for people other than just Xie Lian, and Hua Cheng's just like, no, think what you want. That's not the case. It's interesting, right? It's interesting that it's brought up, but they realize that the fetus spirit is gone. So then Xie Lian, this is the weird thing. They go to the chamber, and he says he's like, it couldn't get far. And he's like, well, don't you have any guards that patrol? See if they saw anyone suspicious. He says, there's none. There's never been any guards. So, the Heavenly Moon Officer, where did he come from? What is this business? So that's a question. There are no guards at Paradise Manor. But what about the half moon officer or the waning moon officer? What about him? We don't know. And what I find curious about this chapter is that they're not mentioned at all. Like, they're really not mentioned. Nothing's brought up. Xie Lian's not sure what to make of it all. So it's almost like MAXTX does not want us to think about the waning moon officer anymore. They're like, no, that's not important. Which means that it's important, right? Right. If you've read these stories, you're like, okay, the fact that we're misdirecting away from the waning moon officer means that they are somewhat important, right? But, or does Hua Cheng not know about them? So I'm still like a big old question mark around the waning moon officer. I don't want to know. We'll find out. But I find it curious that Hua Cheng's like, I don't need any guards. I'm fine. And that seems like it's in direct contrast of Junwoo, because even though Junwoo doesn't need any guards, they're in the heavenly realm where there's heavenly officials everywhere. So it's almost like you kind of do have a personal army of guards, even if you don't technically need one. I'm wondering if Junwoo and Hua Cheng will face one another. I really am, because if Junwoo killed Bai Wusheng, I'm so curious if Junwoo would feel the need to attack or battle Hua Cheng or vice versa. And I don't know why we would get to that point. I don't, it's weird. I don't think the story is setting up for Junwoo to face Hua Cheng in a battle necessarily. I feel like at some point Junwoo is going to confront Hua Cheng about something. I don't know what though. So I don't know. I'm going to pin that in the back of my brain. Hold that for volume 4. We'll come back to that thought later. But, so the idea is that someone came and turned the spirit loose, and that's how they got out. Or worst case scenario is the person who stole the spirit is still there. And so Hua Cheng says, as long as these doors, he's like, I've made it to these doors. If anybody takes something that's mine, even just one item, they will not be able to leave and will be trapped inside the room. So he's like, it's kind of like the Cave of Wonders. Like, you can't steal from the Cave of Wonders. You can't take anything out that's not yours. He's like, I'll seal the door and you can't escape. And it's like, okay, cool. So Xie Lian's like, well, that makes sense because the last time we didn't leave through the doors, the Windmaster blew the roof off the house, which I guess not every heavenly official is going to have the power of the Windmaster. So that's not just going to be something that randomly happens, all the time. So he's like, okay. And then Hua Cheng says the phrase, once it's in my hands, it's mine. But don't worry, Gege. I would never steal any of your spiritual devices. And that's like such a sexual innuendo. That's like such a phrase of Hua Cheng saying, well, once I've got you, you're mine. But you, I respect you. I would never take anything from you without you giving it to me. It's like read between the lines. It's like, oh, really? Unless Xie Lian gave it to you, you wouldn't take it? Okay. Like just, he is smooth. Hua Cheng is a very smooth man. It's like, whoo. So Xie Lian's like, well, yes, I would just, I don't have any spiritual devices worth stealing. I'm like, you have Ruye and you have function. Of course you do. And then Hua Cheng's like, stealing from something from me without notice is impossible. There's no need for guards. So that's when they call everybody to the manor. And there's like thousands of ghosts. And they all, at that point, realized that Xie Lian is a heavenly official. And the cool thing is, what also is a nice little opposite part here, is that the heavenly realm, they judge the ghosts, right? The heavenly realm, they judge the ghosts. Like, as soon as Lan Chang shows up, and as soon as Lan Chang shows up with Xie Lian, they are all raising all kinds of gossip and just being the most catty. Whereas in the ghost realm, they don't judge Xie Lian. It's become clear in the novel that they suspected he was a heavenly official, but they never called him out on it or judged him for it. He was Hua Cheng's guest, so they were just like, okay. And they thought it was interesting, and they were very curious about it, but it's kind of, the irony is the hoity-toity heavenly realm, they judge all the ghosts and consider them inferior, but then you have the ghosts who see somebody like Xie Lian and they don't judge him at all. They're just like, oh, he's with the master. Oh. Like, it reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. Honestly, it does. I know I've said that as a reference before, but it reminds me of Beauty and the Beast when the people of the town saw the beast and all of the inanimate objects and were like, they're monsters, we have to destroy them. But then you have, the others in the castle with the beast, and they're like, oh, it's just Belle. Because the thing of it is that the inanimate objects and the beast were once human. So they don't look down on anybody else because they know that they're no different than them. They're all human or were human at one time. But the people in the village look down upon the objects in the castle because they don't view them as human. It's the exact same thing with the heavenly realm versus the ghost realm. The ghost realm, they were all ghosts. All the ghosts were once human. For the most part, we assume. So they all don't judge. Whereas the heavenly realm, they all think they're much better than them. So it's fascinating. I think it's interesting. I'm going to stop making movie references so we can move forward. But anyway, they find Lady Lan Chang, and Xie Lian points out that she is no longer wearing all her revealing, garb and showing her off her cleavage and everything. So her being bundled up must mean she's hiding something. And then she's hiding the fetus spirit in her. And God, it's kind of interesting because MXTX, again, does the body horror, right? Everything. And let me see this. We'll get to this part here. Xie Lian points out that the fetus spirit has come back to her. And he says this line here. There's a paragraph that's on page 772 as a whole. But in our book, I'm trying to think, it's back there before we get to chapter 99. But in any case, it says, if the fetus spirit was already born, it would be a child and an independent person. This is the subtle commentary that reading this passage, I was like, oh, where it says it would be an independent person. But since it was forcibly removed from its mother's womb before it reached term, its mother stuffed it back, it'd count as something that belonged to her. No, it should be said the fetus spirit was no different than a piece of her flesh, a part of her body. After all, the blood bond between mother and child was thick, and under the circumstances, they were but one body, so that female ghost could naturally leave without harm and exit Paradise Manor openly. So, okay, there's a subtle commentary here, and I don't know if MXTX was trying to be controversial or say anything, or if this was the message they were trying to say. But what's fascinating about this is that MXTX is suggesting that because the fetus spirit wasn't like a full-term baby, because it was like in the early stages of development, that it wasn't technically its own individual person yet. It was still part of the mother, and it was part of the mother's flesh. And so when she took the fetus back, she could leave the doors because she technically hadn't taken anything that wasn't her own. So that's how she got out of the loophole. I don't know, and I'm sure people in the comments will say, and I'm going to tread lightly because this is a very, very, very delicate subject, and I'm treating it very seriously, but it almost was a commentary that it was part of her, it wasn't its own being. So I don't know if that's like it was my choice, my body, my choice sort of situation. If it's a commentary about it's part of her, it's not its own independent self. It's a very delicate line, because then for the rest of the chapters, the fetus spirit is referred to separately than her, because at this point it had been separated from her and became its own entity. So I don't know if MXTX is trying to make a commentary about that or not, but reading that paragraph, I was like, oh, you could read it like that, but it's just that one paragraph and then she moves on. But it almost seemed like a very subtle commentary about it. I don't know if she is, and that is, again, a extremely delicate subject that is rather hard to talk about. So I don't really want to go too much more into detail about it, but it struck a chord with me reading it, and I was like, is this something are you making a statement, MXTX? I dread the comments getting heated over it, so I want to be delicate about it. But I did notice that, and that was rather interesting. And so then, yeah, chapter 99, it was right at the end of chapter 98 that paragraph is there. And so Xie Lian's like, you need to get that fetus spirit away from you because it's literally going to kill you. Like, you need to separate it. And it's tragic. Like, it's absolutely heartbreaking because she suggests, she's like, no, I'm going to keep it in my womb and raise him. He'll be fine. He won't harm anyone anymore. And I'm like, you can't, it's a ghost. You can't keep it in your body to term. It'll kill you. It's already a ghost. It's a vicious spirit already. You can't take that back. And for her to be a mom, it's just like, it's Shanji to another level. It's like Shanji was sad enough, but now we've taken that concept and made it even creepier and worse and even more tragic. And she's like, don't hand him to those scoundrels in heaven. And in that moment, even though she is kind of, and I full on think that the whole pointing thing and everything, she was acting crazy for a reason. I don't think she's legitimately like that. I don't think she's lost in the head. Like, Shanji had gone mad. Shanji had gone mad from wanting Pei Ming. Like, it had driven her to insanity. Lan Chan is not insane. We'll talk about that when we get up to the heavenly realms, but she's not crazy. She just wanted to get out of there and didn't want her son to be taken by them. And in that moment, when she says, I don't want those scoundrels in heavens to take my son, like, in that moment, it paints the heavenly realm like they're villains. It paints them like they're bad because she's like, I didn't do anything. She's like, the fetus spirit may have killed many people, but he didn't mean it. He's a baby. It's a fetus spirit. So she's like, don't let them take him away and destroy him. It's like, woof. And so then at that moment, she reveals that Xie Lian is a heavenly official and they've known all along. And so Xie Lian's like, welp. And it's interesting because Xie Lian, I love how polite he is. He's like such an old man. He's like, excuse my imposition. Like, he's such an old man. Like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this, ma'am. And that's when this giant light erupts from the center of her abdomen. And it's from a gold belt around her waist. The belt looked normal and indistinct, but he was astonished. Why would something like this be on you? It was something that belonged to the heavens. only heavenly officials could possess it. And it was from one from the upper court. So, we've got a mystery. We have a mystery on our hands, starting in this chapter, as if we didn't have enough mysteries, as if we didn't have enough things to wonder about. Now we can add something to the pile. So, this golden belt, Xie Lian had 40, which I love that Xie Lian realized when they admitted he had 40, he was like, oh my God. And they're like, what a posh boy. And he's like, I don't know. But, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But, so he had 40, but the golden belt came from a heavenly official in the upper court. That Mu Ching somehow knows. That Mu Ching knows. Knows or is. Knows or is. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so the belt that she's wearing somehow had some type of effect on the fetus spirit. Like, had some kind of effect on it. And was able to, like, contain the fetus spirit and calm it down. And so, and Xie Lian realizes that your child was one from a heavenly official from 700 or 800 years ago. Because, yeah, that would explain the charm and everything. So we know that it's about 700 to 800 years ago. And that the child is of a heavenly official. Well, that's, what do we do with that, right? So somebody's the daddy of this baby and did not take responsibility for it and her being killed. And now Xie Lian's like, okay, well, we got to find out who's responsible, who's the dad. And she doesn't want to say who it is. And Mu Ching either is the dad or knows who the dad is and isn't saying anything either. So there's some reason behind it. But what is the deal? What is the deal? Because Pei Ming is like, nope, not me. I'm sitting this one out. If the one time I'm not the father of a child, it's not this one. And honestly, like, the ghosts all give her a hard time about it, being like, the one ghost that said he only cared for killing but not the burial. He knocked you up but didn't want to raise the kid. I honestly thought it was Mu Ching. We'll talk about it when we get to that point, but I'm like, I thought it was Mu Ching, but we'll talk about it. And so he asked her to come to the heavenly court. So clearly she's worried the dad is still a heavenly official there. So it's not the waning moon officer because they've been banished. It's not Xie Lian. It's obviously not Hua Cheng. She was afraid of going to the heavenly court because someone up there was the dad. It's not Jun Wu. And we know it's not Ling Wen. So interesting. And we know it's not Xie Lian because he took a blood test. Took a DNA test and a paternity test and found out he was not the father. Good thing. We'll talk about that damn sword. But Hua Cheng is like, okay, you take care of this. You go, you do you, Xie Lian. I'll be waiting for you. And he's like, all right, I'll take her up to the court. And when she thanks Hua Cheng, it's so interesting. And so he rushes straight to the heavens. I love that Xie Lian, as soon as he gets to the heavens, like, he wastes no time gathering up the gossip. He's like, everybody come quick. We got to find the parentage of this baby ghost and his mama. And everybody's like, gotta come see what this is about. But this part here, then a black-clad heavenly official strolled into the hall. And when he saw what was in the center, he paused for a moment. It was Mu Ching. Lan Shan glanced at him and immediately lowered her head, her lips quivering. He didn't show any reaction, but asked, who is that woman? When she heard her, Your Highness, her face changed and looked as if she was remembering something, but she wasn't too sure. So, there's a number of things this could be. There's a number of things, right? So, okay, Mu Ching, we're going to do theory time. And we're going to go from the most outrageous theories to, we're going to do theory times about Lan Chong, okay? So, Lan Chong theories. Again, I don't want to know the answers to these. So, if you could please, clutch your pearls, grab your popcorn, hold your glasses of wine up as Romania Black gives you the most ridiculous, outrageous theories you've ever heard. And I don't want to know if I'm right or wrong. You can all just put your fists in your mouth and be like, she'll never know! Or she'll find out in 3 volumes, you know, whenever. Okay, so the most common, like, white bread theory could be that Mu Qing is the dad, right? That makes sense. Mu Qing, even though they say they're like, well, Mu Qing's really judgmental. He wouldn't really. Here's my thing. Mu Qing used to also work as, you know, in the slums. He was from the slums, right? And that whole thing of putting on airs is seemingly part of Mu Qing's personality. He tries to act mightier than he is. He tries to act like, you know, he's not playing Jenny from the Block on his iPod, right? He's not doing that. No, he's not doing that. Instead, he's trying to act like he's bigger than what he actually is. He's acting like he doesn't want to go back to his roots, right? So Mu Qing wants to act like he is this high heavenly official and of this proper status. But I'm like, you came from the slums. You're like Aladdin. It's okay. And he doesn't want to admit that. So could he have had a relationship with Long Chong? Maybe. Could he have had a relationship with her and didn't want to go back to that because it would cause him to admit something not only scandalous, but also admit that he was, you know, from this lower class that Mu Qing doesn't want to recognize? Could be. So Mu Qing could be the dad. Okay, so there's one option. The other thing is that maybe Mu Qing knows the dad, right? We know it's not Feng Shen. Feng Shen ain't touching a woman with a 10-foot pole out of pure chivalry. And we know that it's not Pei Ming because he's like, I don't date uggos. They got to be a 10. And we know it's not Xie Lian. So, and we know it's not Hua Cheng. So Mu Qing might know who the dad is. Now, who could that possibly be that Mu Qing would know that he wouldn't want it to get out in public? Well, it could be that, what if it was Qi Rong? What if it was Qi Rong that's the dad? I said that I said that, you know, the fetus spirit a few reactions ago, that maybe the fetus spirit was Qi Rong's. It would make sense. It's a malevolent spirit. Kind of checks with Qi Rong, unfortunately. It could be that Mu Qing knows that it's Qi Rong and he's trying to protect Xie Lian by not saying, hey, it's your cousin's, who's also a supreme ghost. FYI. Could be that reason. It would stand to reason that the golden belt, if it was Xie Lian's, came from Qi Rong because Qi Rong stole it and Mu Qing knew that it was his and knew that's where it came from. So it could be for that reason, possibly. And obviously Qi Rong and Xie Lian, that's a big source of trauma, kind of like what Hua Cheng's been trying to avoid. Mu Qing might be trying to avoid the same thing. So maybe it is Qi Rong that's the dad and Mu Qing doesn't want to bring it up, right? Maybe that's the case. We don't know. That's one possibility. Is it connected to Long Ying? I don't know. Don't know. It doesn't seem like it's the same baby spirit that caused the human face disease. Don't think it is, but that could be a theory. Throw that out there. Honestly, this is probably the wildest theory and the one that's least likely. Is it connected to Hua Cheng's parents? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I don't know. The Qi Rong, either Mu Qing being the dad or Qi Rong being the dad, are the two that I am most going for right now. I think that it could be Qi Rong as the dad because Qi Rong doesn't look that far off from Xie Lian. So her pointing at Xie Lian being like, "You're the dad," and him being like, "Well, Qi Rong kind of looks like Xie Lian and they're blood related." So is she really lying saying that? I mean, yes, but I think that it's either Mu Qing is the father, Mu Qing knows the father, or it's Qi Rong and Mu Qing is covering for Xie Lian because he doesn't want to out that Qi Rong is the dad and is related to Xie Lian. But it could be a fourth option. It could be that Mu Qing knows the father, but they're a heavenly official. I mean, the only thing around that is Qi Rong wouldn't have to be a heavenly official. They could have stole the golden belt from Xie Lian and gave it to her. Could have been that. But again, I can't imagine Qi Rong being the dad of anyone. So that's almost out. So, or it could be somebody that Mu Qing knows that we don't know or haven't met yet, and he's just trying to keep a secret for whatever reason to protect Xie Lian. I don't know. I do think that whatever Mu Qing is doing, even though Feng Shen says to watch out for him, I feel like at the end of the day, Mu Qing is doing stuff to protect Xie Lian in his own way. His own way is just kind of sketchy. I don't know, but I'm so curious about that. It'll be fun to see how that comes out and how that develops. To see what we go. There are some things with the people that are suspected of being the parents, though, that are really fun. But when Master shows up and says, "Well, hello, Temple Master. why'd you bring this female ghost here? And he's like, temple master. He's like, Pucci shrine. Why the sudden address? And he's like, then he means the Qiandong temple. And I love that the Windmaster, no one else wants to acknowledge that Xie Lian has all the lanterns, right? But the Windmaster is going to be the first person to bring it up. BFF. Best friend forever. I love the Windmaster. And so then, again, Xie. I don't know how I feel about his character. I don't like his character very much because he's so pushy with his brother, right? Because he's like, you're a man, a heavenly official, being like, this is the great martial law. Don't turn into a woman. Even a woman's form is disgraceful. Change back in this instant. Like, granted, the Windmaster should probably have not reached out their hand to touch Lan Chong's belly. That probably wasn't the appropriate measure, and that's probably what Xie was trying to say in his own way. But it just comes off as, I don't know, as condescending, and the whole thing where he doesn't want the Windmaster to turn into a woman seems kind of, I don't want to say transphobic, but a little bit like prejudiced to a point that I don't like it. So I'm not the biggest Xie fan. I like that they like each other and they're siblings, and you can tell the Windmaster loves their brother a lot, and their brother does seem like they like the Windmaster a lot as well as a sibling, but his personality just doesn't jive with me much. At least with Pei Ming, he's so funny that because he's ridiculous that you kind of go, you just throw your hands up and go, okay. But with Xie he's just very dry and kind of like almost pompous, and it's not the type of character I'm too into. I mean, the Windmaster can pull off like kind of snarky and preppy because they're so charismatic, whereas Xie doesn't seem charismatic. That's the thing, right? But so Xie Lian tells the story. And I like that Xie Lian does not mention Hua Cheng or the Ghost City. We leave 80% of the story out. I like that Xie Lian's like, yes, I went to this house and there was a ghost spirit, and we're not going to talk about the Ghost King kissing me, or the Ghost King taking me on a date, or the Ghost City residents giving me food, or me going back to his house after dark and doing private calligraphy lessons with him. We're not going to talk about that. But the fetus spirit... Like, Xie Lian's just like, we're going to leave out a good 30-40% of the story and just chalk it up as that. I love it. I love that he's like, no, let's not focus on that. And so then I love that everybody, literally, they're like, well, we need to find out who's the father. And everyone just slowly turns to Pei Ming. And Pei Ming's like, it's not me. I love that. I love that this story. I was getting ready to yell at Pei Ming. I was like, how dare you? How dare you abandon your son? Like, I was getting ready to get all mad about it and just be like, and just shit on Pei Ming some more. And then the more this chapter goes on, the more it's like, oh, wait, you're not the father. My bad. I honestly feel really bad for him. I was like, I'm sorry, sir. Sorry about that. But anyway, so they go through, and everyone thought it was Pei Ming's kid. And he was like, excuse me. He's like, that's not right. So... if the female ghost had a fleeting affair with Pei Ming, it said that she wouldn't have suffered having her womb ripped open, her son robbed, and becoming a vicious ghost. So there is something that is established with Pei Ming, and I do want to point that out because I do think it's rather important. As I've said in the past, I will give characters a benefit of the doubt. I will be open-minded. I'll just call it like I see it, right? And so with Pei Ming, let's just establish that Pei Ming, if he has an affair with a woman, he sets them up. He sets them up for life. That they will want for nothing, right? Pei Ming is not going around he's not the baby daddy to a bunch of babies, but he does set these women up, right? With the exception of Shan Ji, right? That's who no longer wanted to follow him. They were guaranteed a life of riches and care, soaking in wealth and sweetness. So he doesn't say that he fathers any kids, but he does all the women that he's with, they get set up for life. So he's like, well... all right. I like that he admits, though, that he's like, hey, I've had an affair with a ghost lady, but I would remember that kinky stuff. It's like, ah! So I'm kind of like, Pei Ming, ghost ladies, what? I'm starting to see why y'all are fascinated by him. He's just he just needs some pickles thrown on him every now and then. And he needs to leave Pei Su alone. Leave it at that, right? So, with the exception of Shanji, which, again, that's so sad. Shanji deserves a lot of the crap that she gets because of her actions, but it is really sad that at the end of the day, all these other women who could just let it go were rewarded with riches, and Shanji, who was maybe the only one of those women to have an actual love for him, is the one that ends up committing suicide and becoming a ghost. Go figure. Go figure, right? But in any case, I did not imagine I'd be spending my Valentine's Day talking about like a gender, like a parental, like paternity test being tested. Did not anticipate spending my Valentine's Day talking about this. So we go this route here that they do all these different tests to see who the father could be. And I like that Xie Lian almost tells the Heavenly Realm that he can't get erect. He almost says it, and he's like, no, I'm not in the ghost realm. I'll never live it down if I say that to them. He's like, the ghosts will all let it go, but these people, they'll never let me live it down, because he says that everyone has a reputation. He says there was only a causal excuse, not appropriate to be used in circumstances like these. There were already vulgar commentary that passed around in private in the upper court in regards to martial gods and their attitude towards women. So there's some gossip about how people treat women in the upper court. And so the rumor is that basically Feng Xin, it says Feng Xin saw women he'd stay respectively far away. He's chivalrous. He wants nothing to do with them because he's scared of them. But he's very chivalrous, right? That's Feng Xin. And Lan Chanchu is bashful. Lan Chanchu's bashful around women. He blushes when he sees a lady. Like, okay. Mu Qing is kind of like Pei Wing. He's like nobody under a 10. So he's like, no ugly women. All right. When Pei Su, I love his. Pei Su, when he saw a woman, he was expressionless. He was expressionless, but who knew he was actually thinking? Pei Su likes women, but he likes Banyu the best, right? And then I love that Chan Jijin, they're just like, he didn't even have women on his mind. And Pei Ming was all women. So that's funny because this is the one, Shan Qiying is the one he wanted Pei Su to replace, right? I feel like Pei Su is kind of like Pei Ming in that he does like women, but he's not flamboyant about it. Or maybe he likes a woman, right? He likes all women. Pei Ming is like every woman, all women are queens, and Chan Jijin's like, what are women? He's like, not even on the brain. Not even thinking about it. Nope. Not even crossing his mind, right? That's really funny. And then Xie Lian's just like, oh, nope. He's like, he doesn't want to be added to that list, right? Does not want to be on there. And so she's like, it is you, Crown Prince of Shanla. And so I like that everybody's like whispering, and Xie Lian tries to stand up for himself. He's like, look, I've collected junk. I have been a beggar, and he's like, I've begged and borrowed. He's like, but I would never let anyone suffer like you and your child has. So no, do not speak falsehoods. Like, don't dirty my name. He's like, because I know I'm better than that. So it's like, good. I'm glad Xie Lian sticks up for himself. And this is a really cool moment because Xie Lian, to try to alleviate the situation, he could have said that it was him just to solve the problem and be done with it. But no, he stands up for his morals. He's like, no, I'm not going to let you make these accusations. I'm going to stand up for myself. And I'm like, good on you, Xie Lian. Also has to do with sex. So Xie Lian's like, whoa, nope, cultivation, drawing a line. And so then I like the Windmaster is like, hold on. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Why would Xie Lian bring you here in the first place if he's the dad? Why would you just wait till now to notice him? That doesn't make sense at all. And some people are like, well, do you think Xie Lian lost his memory? Kind of thinking like what the audience is maybe thinking. And Xie Lian's just like, I don't know what to do. And Feng Xin says he looks like he would like to say something but doesn't. That's curious. I wonder what Feng Xin would have said. I wonder what he would have said. And at this point, Jun Wudu's like, okay, how many gold belts do you have? And Xie Lian's like, I don't know, 10. And Mu Qing is like, over 40. Each of them individually embroidered and patterned. I love that moment because Xie Lian has grown up his whole life taking advantage and taking for granted how luxurious his life was. Mu Qing remembered every aspect of it because Mu Qing grew up without that lifestyle. So again, we're painting a picture of Mu Qing as a character that, no, he remembered everything that Xie Lian had. I have gotten the feeling from the flashbacks and this chapter in particular that I do think Mu Qing may have been jealous or envious rather, of what Xie Lian had that he took advantage of. I do think that. I do think Mu Qing cares about Xie Lian. I think that he wouldn't... I think that Mu Qing does care about Xie Lian still even, but I do think that he was envious that Xie Lian had all this wealth and privilege and took it for granted. Right? I do think that. Because this moment here where he just answers flatly and Xie Lian's like, oh, I did have that many. Oh, no. And so Junwoo says, where are they now? And that's where Feng Xin and Xie Lian go, ugh. So we know as the audience from volume 1 that Xie Lian pawned off a bunch of his stuff, and that's around the time that Feng Xin had enough. When Xie Lian started pawning off everything and was at his lowest point, Feng Xin was like, I've stuck with you this long, but I'm out now. And so they both realized that they've probably pawned off the belts over 800 years, and there's no telling where they've ended up, right? And so Junwoo, it sounds like Junwoo didn't expect him to remember either, and he's like, okay, that proved my point. But my point is, your spiritual power is damaged if you stray from your cultivation, right? It demands you remain pure. And Xie Lian's like, yes. And I love the Windmaster's like, well, just look at him. He's never even held anyone's hand, let alone knocked anyone up. And Xie Lian was about to say that's right, but then he remembers not even the last set of chapters. He remembers back to the caravan when Hua Cheng held his hand and they walked through the forest together. And he's like, oh. And then everybody's like, that means that you have held his hand. You have held someone's hand. But again, that's pretty low of a standard. And then Xing Shan says, well, even if you've held hands, you've never kissed anybody before. And Xie Lian's like, and his face turning red. And I love that when he thinks, Xie Lian's had a sexual awakening. He thinks back to that bubbly lake and the handsome face with closed eyes and the small widow's peak across his shapely forehead, beautiful to behold. And he flushes bright red, and everybody's like, oh. I love everybody's like, and the Windmaster's like, oh, I shouldn't have said anything. And I love that everybody's just like, oh no. He's like, and I love in the private communication array, the Windmaster says, I am so sorry about that, Your Highness. I was trying to convince everybody. I didn't realize you've had such experiences. I couldn't tell. I love the Windmaster's like, I didn't know you kissed somebody. Oh my gosh, great for you. Would never have known. Let's talk about it later. And I like at this point where he's like, oh, and Xie Lian, when saying I couldn't tell, Xie Lian's like, well, you don't have to say more. It was an accident. And at that point, Junwoo's like, he like pressed against lips, like, like he's like, let's get back on track. Have you violated these vows in those years back then? He's like, I didn't do that. It's fine. I feel like Junwoo is going to want to know, what have you been doing? And if the Heavenly Realm finds out that Xie Lian has been canoodling with the Supreme Ghost, Hua Cheng, it is going to be the biggest scandal in the world. And I'm like, I don't know. Part of me feels like it's going to come out and be a thing. And part of me feels like the Windmaster might find out and try to keep it secret. But I don't know. If Pei Ming finds out, he'll be like, just you wait. But I don't know at this point. I've not been convinced whether it's going to get out to the entire Heavenly Realm that Xie Lian and Hua Cheng are in a relationship or not, or will be in a relationship, or if it's going to be something like just the Windmaster finds out and keeps under wraps. I'm like 56. I'm like 40-60 at this point. I'm leaning more towards everybody's going to find out, but then I'm leaning more towards like maybe the Windmaster will keep it a secret. I don't know. But yeah, so that's when we get out Yanzhen, which means glamorous virtue. And everybody's like, why does he have all these messed up swords? I know why, because of situations like this. He's the Heavenly Emperor. He's like, I need a sword to address any possible weird situation. Here's one of those weird situations. We're going to use this sword for a paternity test. You're going to it's like, should the blood of a virgin flow upon it, it won't be stained, but will become brighter as it's washed. So, luckily, Xie Lian is still a virgin and everything's fine. I wonder if this is set up for a moment where Yanzin will come out again and Xie Lian will scrape it and it will stain it, and like Junwoo will be like, you're not a virgin? Like, I'm waiting for that to be a thing. I don't know. I don't know. That would be absolutely insane. And so, yeah, the Ling Wen says, the fetus spirit is unruly. Your powers aren't strong to Long Chong. Its blood-bound father could calm and discipline it. So, but we don't know who that is. So it's like, I'm so curious. I don't know who it's going to end up being, but I'm still curious. Like, is it Mu Qing? Is Mu Qing going to go find her and talk about it? Like, what is this? Because, yeah, Mu Qing wanting to gain this prestige and be a heavenly official, he wouldn't want to have anything else getting in the way of that. And maybe, if Mu Qing is the father, maybe she went to the ghost realm to escape the eyes of the heavenly realm too. Maybe Mu Qing was like, I'm going to be a heavenly official. I can't have this happening. And she's like, maybe she loved him and was like, I'll just go to the ghost realm. And then Hua Cheng took her in. It would be, actually, you know what? It would be really, really fascinating and such a twist if Mu Qing was the father and Hua Cheng took her in where Mu Qing, like, neglected her. That would be interesting because Mu Qing and Hua Cheng have been at odds with each other. Mu Qing has not been happy about Hua Cheng being near Xie Lian and has actively, seemingly tried to dismiss Hua Cheng in front of Xie Lian or behind his back. So it would be really interesting if Mu Qing was the father of the fetus spirit and had been with her, and because she loved him and didn't want to get him in trouble from his heavenly official ranking, she just stayed in the ghost realm. And it would be amazing if Hua Cheng took her in and Hua Cheng gave her shelter after everything Mu Qing had done. That would be amazing. I don't think that will happen. I don't know. But that would be a really cool twist. And that would be such an irony situation, right? But we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't think she's crazy. I think she was blaming all of this. See, something else is going wrong here. And then they decide that they're just going to dismiss her and take her away. And so Xie Lian, he says that, he's like, they all say the Palace of Ling Wen isn't efficient, but how can it be helped? Every time we gather here, there's so much noise and vagueness. He's like, nothing is ever solved. He's like, how can she conduct anything in these conditions? So I'm glad that Xie Lian has always, since Volume 1, kind of defended Ling Wen. I like that. And he does that here for her too. So then Feng Shen says, watch out for Mu Qing. And Feng Shen's like, look, I don't care for other people's affairs, but he clearly had something to do with her. They clearly knew each other. He at least knows something. So what do we do? But they leave it at that. But Xie Lian does not think that the father of the fetus spirit was Mu Qing. He said he couldn't imagine him doing such a thing. He thinks that him and Mu, which is funny, he thinks him and Mu Qing are one and the same. So he's like, but he doesn't know what to do with that. So he doesn't think, I find it interesting that he thinks him and Mu Qing are very similar. It would be interesting if it turned out that it was wrong, that Mu Qing did do something like that and maybe was ashamed of it because it wasn't living up to the standards Xie Lian had set forth. I don't know. But I like that at this point we're gonna table this mystery. We're going to put this under indefinite right now. We don't know what's going on. We're going to come back to it, I'm sure, in next volume or two. But right now we're going to table it. And he's like, I like that. So he didn't forget about him. He just left him to be babysat by the merchant. At least you're being resourceful, Xie Lian. But he goes and finds the merchant. The merchant's super happy. He says he's going to go to his temple